What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to a National Signing Day Part 2, kind of nothing at all. House divided. It's a big show. We're with you. I'm Jeff. He's Chad. Steve Sarkisian just met with the local media. We get to react to everything that he said on National Signing Day. I'm going to do my best not to yell at media members from the city of Austin and the state of Texas who let us down today. Oh, they let us down. But I'm going to try to keep myself together. I really am. Chad, we're going to welcome everybody into the Specs chat. Welcome. Congratulations, by the way, on Terry Bussey. Volleyball clap for the Aggies.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm wearing the maroon today, not only for Terry Bussey, but because later on I'm supposedly talking to Shane Leckler on The Outsiders, so I'm very nervous and excited today. But yes, big day. Big day. There's been a lot of bad recruiting stuff or negative or what's leaving College Station in recruiting. A five-star showing up is a good thing. So, yeah, the Terry Bussey news.
I didn't know if it was going to happen.
That was big.
A year ago, the Aggies signed arguably the greatest recruiting class of all time. A couple of years later, it's like, are they going to sign somebody that's worthy of like buying a jersey and putting their last name on? So kudos to the Aggies. Maybe more than any fan base in America, they get to be happy today because they signed the last kind of holdout player. Mm-hmm. But enough about the Aggies and their joy.
I appreciate that time. That was actually a lot more than I expected.
I gave you more time to bask in the glory of A&M happiness today than Austin media members spent time asking good questions to Steve Sarkisian. Let's start with like the big news of the day and the thing that I think coming out of the press conference, it was probably the most interesting thing, right? So the Longhorns yesterday announced that they've got a GM, that Brandon Harris, who when Billy Glasscock took the GM job at Ole Miss last week, one of the things that I had passed along right out of the gate was, you know what? Everybody's okay that Glasscock has left, partly because Brandon Harris is viewed as a bit of a superstar behind the scenes. They think that he and Glasscock had worked together on a lot of things together and that Brandon Harris was equally responsible as the director of recruiting, where Glasscock was the director of player personnel, and that they wore a lot of hats, did a lot of things. I've been an advocate for so long, for years now, that Texas hire a general manager, and we'll get to it in a second, but it was interesting to hear Sarkisian talk about partly why he hired a general manager. And it was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to do everything, Sark. You can have a guy that speaks for you and does the thing. So they have one of those guys, but it's really interesting because they didn't have a GM position at all. In theory, the pecking order, although the jobs are different. So, I don't know that it's like the director of player personnel, I think, is considered just a below general manager, Chad. Mm-hmm. And then director of recruiting is kind of a little bit below that, although, again, not exactly the same job. I think there was a lot of thought that Brandon Harris would get Glasscock's old job, director of player personnel, and that's not what happened. Instead, he leapfrogged that job. He got the rare double promotion.
Ooh, the double bump.
It is. It's the rare double bump. You're expecting a bump. You're hoping to get a raise. And the next thing you know, wait a minute, I got the double bump. He got the double bump.
I would make sure if I get the double bump, A, do I get both pay raises? And if so, could you bump me once? Give me like 2 days to be happy about that, and then bump me again. Can I spread out the two bumps a little bit?
Yeah, because you're wasting. There's supposed to be two events that I get to celebrate. If you bump it into one, even though I got the double bump, I lost one of my celebration days in the process.
Yeah, I want to go have steak and a really good glass of wine for the first one, and then come back later and we'll do it again for the second one.
He wasn't the only person that got a double bump, because J.M. Jones goes from being an assistant, kind of Kenny Baker-esque, right? Like he wasn't the director of recruiting. He wasn't the director of player personnel. He was an assistant to the player personnel department.
To the regional manager.
Yes. But now he now holds a job that Brandon Harris didn't even have last year.
Right.
Because Harris made the double bump.
Yeah.
So J.M. Jones, where you might have thought, well, he'll take over Brandon Harris's director of recruiting spot because Harris will take over the director of player personnel spot. Instead, he got the double bump. He's now where Glasscock was a year ago, a massive bump up for him. He goes from never having been in charge of anything ever. He's been an assistant, a little bit like Kenny Baker. Kenny Baker wasn't in charge of the defensive line at Miami last year. That fell on the shoulders of the actual defensive line coach. Well, now J.M. Jones gets to be in a management position, and Tracy Searles, the daughter of Stacy Searles, the former Texas offensive line coach, is now the director of recruiting, taking over Brandon Harris's old job. And if Brandon Harris was a rock star, what does it mean that Taylor Searles just filled the rock star's position? So some really interesting stuff going on behind the scenes. We can talk about what each of those positions does, if that's interesting. I thought the methodology behind the hires said a lot, because Sarkisian very clearly cared, I think, and I don't mean this to sound insulting. It can sound insulting. That's not what I'm going for. And I don't think Sark, in confirming why he made the hires, would want to say that that's the only reason why he made the hires. But he was looking for continuity. He was looking to keep the team together. He was looking for somebody with Brandon Harris in the general manager position, in his own words, to think like him, to be a representation of him, to be locked in one. And he couldn't describe whether or not it was because he's a former quarterback. You know, it's clear he likes Brandon Harris.
Right.
But one of the things he didn't say was, we thought that's the best guy we could get. Why did each of these people, we think they're the best in the country at what they do in those positions. That's why we hired them. It was less about trying to put together the 1992 dream team, right? Let's go out and hire the best GM in the country. Let's go out and hire the best player personnel guy in the country, the best director of recruiting in the country. It was more about, we like our team. We like to hire from within. We like to give them incentives. And he really enjoyed the opportunity to promote from within, all in the name of symmetry, in the name of continuity, and really, I think, in the name of, with Brandon Harris in the general manager position, having not someone who would come in and challenge his authority. We've talked about, how do you spread the credit around? Steve Sarkisian is very much in charge, and this is his team. And as it turns out, the team that he had a year ago is exactly the team that he wants this year, and he didn't want to hire a single outside person, someone from outside his walls, in any of these four managerial positions. It's a real all-in on what he thinks he's already built and established inside those walls. I thought, for me, that was the most interesting thing of signing day today, was the little bit of the window into his soul that he revealed with regards to the who, whys, and how it came together.
Yeah. One of the interesting follow-ups I would have liked to have heard is why the double bump. He felt, was it important? And by the way, Gabe reminds us, Catch, that the double bump, usually you pay double for that, Cotton. That's true. That is true. But for me, Catch, we've talked about it. The job didn't exist at Texas. We talked about this the other day. They did not have a GM. So what was the thought? I get the idea that Brandon Harris, if you think he's a stud and he's a rock star and he needs to stick around, okay, cool. Put him at the highest position that you had for that thing. And that's where Glasscock was. So put him there, and then everybody gets a bump. I don't know why it needed to be the double bump. Maybe he's just been thinking about, man, I do need somebody that's called the GM.
No one asked him, Coach, you've never had a GM before.
Right.
Why now?
Was it the fact that he realized, oh, wait a second, in about 140 something days, I'm going to be in the SEC, and Lane Kiffin just let everybody know that he's got a GM. Maybe if I'm going to their conference and it's going to become mine, maybe I need a GM, even though I haven't had it. So that detail would have been a little bit interesting. So it was the press conference was strange to me, Catch, for one reason. And you're a music freak, so you'll get this analogy. It's kind of like an album to me. The second song on an album can really set a tone. You can have a badass first song, but sometimes that second song will set the tone and let you know where you're going. Today, first question kind of had a little specificity to it. And the second question was gone. Just fly away, generality, bizarre. And I think it mind melded the whole room. And then there was this series of like generic, big, general kind of question. Team focus, Quinn and Arch, D-line, your new leaders, the wide receiver position. Finally, it kind of came back to Makuba, but it just, there wasn't a lot of specific stuff that was, delved into. And that was one of them that I would have loved to have heard. Like, why do you need a GM now? What is that? But you pointed out, Catch, he said, I love the idea of promoting from within. So, okay, that's cool. But people are going to ask, hey, you're Texas, so why not go out and Catch, here's an example. Why not look at every Power 5 team you respect and say, who's got a GM? And who's that man or woman in that position? And I'm at Texas, I can talk to them and maybe convince them to come here, to come to Austin. That would have been at least kind of the digging in of that that I would have enjoyed.
Anwar Richardson going to join us in about 7 minutes. He was there. He was among those asking questions. If you're wondering what's next and how many players might Texas still add in the spring? What would they be interested potentially in the portal in the spring? What positions do they hope to get improvements of through the portal?
Yeah.
No one asked.
Yeah.
Can't talk about that today. I don't know. Someone asked about defensive tackles, and yet they didn't ask about, are you going to bring any more in? Because everybody in the Specs chat has been obsessed with Texas taking somebody from the University of Michigan.
Right.
Not just bringing someone in from the portal. They want one of those big hosses. And no one asked, like, hey, I know it's kind of hard to answer because you don't know who's going to be available in the spring. But if there were guys available, like what might you be interested in? Kind of stunned that wasn't asked because, it was signing day. Who else might you sign? What else stood out to you today?
I think, some of the basic stuff that he threw out, to give people kind of a map forward about, we knew spring game was April 20th. Now we know spring practice begins on March 19th. The reminder that there are 30 new players on this team. I thought that was an interesting place to start. New college football. The second signing day is really not that. Texas not signing a player on the second national signing day, and that's not a story. Nobody's flipping. What's wrong with Texas recruiting? Nobody's doing that today. It's just part of today. But he points out, Catch, that not only are there 30 new players that are going to be on this team, like 24 of them are already in class. To go back to like the day you started covering Texas football and recruiting and everything, it was 180 degrees from that notion of, hey, Catch, 24 out of the 30 new guys are already here and they're taking class and they're already in winter workouts. They have met the strength and conditioning coach. They vomited on the strength and conditioning coach's shoes already, by today. So I think that perspective on it was interesting.
And real quick, just as a follow-up to that, it wasn't that long ago where how many guys showed up early? 4, 5.
I remember when 7 was a big deal. 7, you were elite.
Holy hell, 7!
Crap, 7 of them?
Now, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't he didn't get into names or the specifics, but by my count, there are 5 that Texas are waiting on from the high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Silas Bolden on the transfer front.
Yeah.
So they signed 30. By my count, 6 are waiting.
That was his, and that was his count too. He started counting it out loud, and he hit 24, I think.
So just in case anybody was wondering, it's 5 high school kids. Probably the biggest name amongst that group is Santana Wilson, the DB out of Arizona, who's the son of Adrian Wilson, the former Arizona Cardinal, who I absolutely adore. I think he's a big-time talent. The other guys coming in the fall, I think, are guys that look like they would be redshirt guys or not. That even if they came in early, I don't know that they would be guys we'd be talking about making an impact. So other than maybe Wilson, who I think could be headed for a redshirt just because he's coming in late, you've got Silas Bolden, but everybody else that they'll want making a contribution in the big house. Second game in September is already on campus throwing up on the strength coach.
Yeah, it's incredible. By the way, you think Texas fans want that big dog on the Michigan defensive front for the obvious reason, but also they'd love for him to be wearing burnt orange in the big house? Like, do you think that's a part of it as well? It would be for me.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt, right? If I'm a fan, that's what I'm thinking. Like, hey, that big old dude, Grant. I know he looks awesome in maize and blue, but how great would he look in burnt orange and white? Like that, I'd be thinking that if I was a Texas fan.
I don't think it's about the one game, but it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, right. It's a little cherry on the sundae. There's no doubt.
It makes you wonder if that's the kind of thing that would make a Michigan guy hesitate from transferring, because it's like, oh crap, man.
Yeah.
2 weeks into the season and I'm coming back to but I'm using the other team's locker room. That's weird. I don't know that I want to do that. One thing that we do want to do, well, I tell you what, Chad, let's pay a bill. And then on the other side of paying a bill, the one, the only Anwar Richardson will join us straight from DKR, if I got the background correct.
Yes, there you go. All right, we will do that. Let me tell the folks about sinus and snoring specialists here real quick. Talking about breathing better, sleeping better, resting better. Anwar is about to join us. I know he was feeling a little under the weather a little earlier today, and we all go through those things: sinus stuff, allergy stuff. I had allergy issues my whole life until 2017 when I went into sinus and snoring specialists, and they get rid of your allergies for good. It's a crazy process. They test you for 50 different allergies all at once. No needles are involved. And then they can develop a treatment, the allergy drops, that are specially designed for you to help you get rid of what's bothering you. I was a mountain cedar guy, and it always drove me crazy. Cedar season hit me hard multiple times a year. Now it doesn't happen anymore. Plus the snoring, sleep apnea, all that stuff they can deal with. There's your QR code. Over 20 years of experience with Dr. Slaughter and his crew. Sinus and snoring specialists feel clear, rested, and healthy. And I do wish clearness, restedness, and healthiness on our next guest, because I was peeking in on the show this morning, and he was not feeling 100%. We hope he's 100% very quickly, and that is Anwar Richardson. What's up, Anwar? How we feeling?
I'm still hanging in there. I mean, at least the ear is, the pain in the ear is gone, but I'm still hanging in there. I'm trying to make it through.
Did you hang out with Sukamel for 5 minutes, and that's what happened here? You got the Sukamel family disease?
Oh my gosh, no! I don't. It's not as bad as that. But I have kids, and so I just think at any point, kids, you go to soccer practice, you're around different people, like that's just bound to happen. So I'm hopefully going to Specs and storing up on the vodka. I feel like that will provide me enough immunity that I need to go forward. So I think I'll be okay. I'll be quite all right, actually.
All those petri dish viruses.
Yes, this kid kills it all.
Anwar, obviously those that would have listened to the old fashioned this morning would have heard your thoughts on the announcements last night about the 4 promotions. Suddenly there's a general manager. Suddenly there are people who were assistants that got double bump ups to big bad positions. Guys that just became the general manager at Ole Miss, retained. Like, a lot of stuff happened in the last 24 hours between all of that and the press conference today and everything that Sark said. Is there a place you want to start?
I mean, we could start with the GM stuff. I mean, because from the press conference standpoint, I don't necessarily think there was any new quote unquote information that really came out of it that you would say to yourself like, "Gosh, we really need to get into that." So he was asked. I think Danny Davis asked, about the promotion of Brandon Harris and kind of asked him to define what a GM is and what really a GM does. Not quite sure he did all of it, to be quite honest with you, Kedge, but I think it kind of coincided with what we reported last night, which was essentially like he's looking for a guy to do a little bit more of the administrative stuff that he doesn't want to necessarily have the time to do, the NIL stuff, dealing with the collectives, things to that effect. I think that's where that kind of comes in for him. And so for him, he described, he talked about the relationship and described Brandon Harris as a rock star. In his estimation, talked about how they kind of connected. I think maybe it's the quarterback thing within them, and so I think it seems him kind of explaining a little bit of what the GM does without really getting into the specifics of that. I think is probably a place to start. I don't know what your thoughts were on his response. Ketch, did you have any thoughts on what he said as relates to that question?
Well, I it's a lot of the stuff that we talked about on the message board and the stuff that we talked about in our Slack channel, which was, I don't think he meant to say I didn't go out and hire the absolute best people possible. But he made a point to say it's important that these people think like me, that there's chemistry and there's continuity. And he used a lot of the C words, continuity and chemistry and cohesion. But he didn't say we think we got the best general manager in the country. We think we've got the best player personnel guy in the country, which is what I think they probably would have said about Billy Glasscock. And now his former assistant is now the player in charge of player personnel, which is the guy that's in charge of like finding guys and talent and who should they recruit and scouting and creating all of the lists and making sure that the coaches know who is available, like all of this stuff. It didn't come across in anything that he said today that we think we've got the best people, but it does sound like he got the best people that he feels like he can work with, which it could be more important than finding the very best people you can find. But he didn't really go into that side of things deep enough that we got, I could have done this and I could have done that, but here's the reason why I did this more. He didn't quite, nobody really asked him to really do a deep dive into the thought process in any of the hires, frankly.
He said they basically would keep the foundation of what they have together. So that's what he said. And to be quite honest with you, I'll be honest with you, I messed up. I let Alex talk me into a question during the modcast, and I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I'll ask it. And I had a question in my mind, and I let Alex kind of talk me into the question. And after I asked it, I realized it was a total waste of a question. Like, I just be honest with you. And so I wanted to do a deeper dive into the defensive line coach and asked the why as relates to that. But Alex just thought in our modcast that asking about the edge rush position was like the most important thing. And I thought, well, maybe I'm missing something, and maybe I should see it the Alex way. And I realized there's a reason why I don't see it the Alex way. It was really, I'll be honest with you, it's afternoon time. It was a really shitty question by me. I'll be honest with you. It was a waste. And I blame myself for it, to be quite honest with you. I should have stuck to my guns. So
Chad, can we do something real quick?
Yeah.
Volleyball clap for Onward.
That's well done. That's well done. Because you know what nobody else is going to do that was in that room? Nobody else would do that. Nobody else is going. Hopefully, maybe there is somebody else, Onward, that's walking away. And if they ask something kind of weird. So here's what I said earlier before you came on. I felt like it was like an album you're listening to, and the second song determines the tone. That second question being so general and random, I think it mesmerized the whole room. And then this series of like broad questions showed up. But Anwar, how much of it is like you guys going into that room on National Signing Day? You always had a certain thing in mind of what that meant. But today was like, you know, they came on LHN saying, yeah, this used to be something, but now we're just going to a press conference. And it just felt like everybody was trying to reset their brain on what it meant. It's like, well, what can I ask? Because there's nothing you absolutely had to because of signing day.
It's out of rhythm. You know, I think when you get into the season, there's a rhythm and there's a flow to it. But when, you know, you haven't spoken to the coach since the last game, I think people then kind of sometimes overthink or underthink their questions, and you know that was happening. And I, you know, overall, there probably was some better questions that could have been asked. I thought there were some good questions asked. Now, don't get me wrong. I thought some good. I thought the transfer portal conversation was interesting, especially I don't know who asked it at the end, but you know, beforehand, Sark really talked about, like, he started talking. I found it really interesting because I actually put my hand to ask a second question, and of course, I didn't get a chance to get it. But he started talking about the transfer portal and kind of his hesitation to kind of dive into that, and how that kind of messes with the continuity and the importance of all those things. And then I don't know who the woman was at the end, but then she basically asked, so what about the young guys? And you know, it put that and it was very interesting because as far as Sark is concerned, when he says, well, hey, I'm you know, the transfer portal, like, I don't even know, like, it's almost kind of a dangerous road that you're going down, and then you have all the young guys that you're developing, but he has to explain, well, why you're not giving the young guys that opportunity. I thought that was really as a throwaway question as it may have been. I thought it was a really good one, to be quite honest with you. Because it really helps.
I didn't even see that question asked, Anwar.
Oh, really?
Is that Anwar? Was that the question where in his answer he said, "If I go into the season with 3 wide receivers, that's malpractice"?
I believe it was somewhere in there. It was definitely towards the end of it, and it may even been like the very last question. Catch. I'm trying to look through my transcript.
One of the guys, if it was the last question, I missed it because I walked out of listening when the guy asked about having local players helping. And
there was definitely that and like what your routine is like. I mean, there was definitely some things that we could have lived without knowing. So, but you know, God bless Ed's heart. You know, that was at the end. I don't know who the woman was, but she asked, and that's what he said. He goes, I think, you know, going into the season with 3 scholarship receivers, that would have been malpractice. That's exactly what he said. He goes, I've got to try to fill our roster with enough depth at that room at any position that in any case where there's some competition. He started talking about that. He goes, I think we were returning 8 career catches in the receiver room. So the idea that I was going to go get 3 high-level receivers from good programs that could come in and contribute and make up that room, I think that's beneficial for us in the fall. So based off of what he said earlier about his hesitation of the portal, but then saying, but you guys, you think I was actually going to do something like that? I thought it was an interesting one way or another kind of a question where I was like, that's fascinating. I also thought, Catch, and you and I have been having this running conversation over the past couple of weeks about in-state recruiting, and he was asked about that. And once again, it's kind of this back and forth kind of a fence riding thing, right? Where he's kind of like, yeah, you know, state of Texas is always going to be our thing. It's always going to be the thing that we're going to go after. But, you know, we're kind of moving out the Big 12, and there's a lot of teams in Texas. And, you know, he started talking about his footprint being a little bit more in the East and having coaches kind of on the East Coast. And he started talking about having some connections on the West Coast as well. So him feeling like as a almost like a national brand, that it's almost like he's saying the right thing of, yeah, I still want to recruit the state of Texas. But we're really more. We could have an East Coast print. I mean, it gives you the benefit of if you win the state of Texas, you can say, look, we won it. And if you don't, but you recruit well out of state, you'd be like, look, we won. Like it's a win either way, right? But I thought him admitting that, because Catch, that's always been a kind of a taboo subject to really admit as a Texas coach that you're actually very interested in going out of the state and getting guys. And the fact that we saw that, I mean, Charlie
got crucified.
Just brutal for doing something like that, right? Like you can't lose that. So the fact that he's like, yeah, well, this is kind of what we're doing. It's interesting to see how that's happened in real time.
His actual words were always, I think the direct quote, if I remember, was we're always going to make our hay in recruiting in Texas.
Yes,
that was. It's weird because I remember when he said it, like the weird thing that went off in my head was like, what does that even mean? I wonder if like the person sitting at home, what the hell does make your hay even mean in 2024? But I digress. I kind of know what it means, but if you don't make hay, maybe you'd have no idea why someone would even say that. I thought what was maybe the most revealing thing, guys, for all the stuff we haven't talked about yet, it dovetails into the portal. Is he kind of started salivating about, I think, what he thinks this team can do.
Yeah.
Right. Like there was a point where when he's answering Kirk Bowles' question, he's like, we're going to have a pretty good team. And I'm like, pretty good. Because Onward, I debated this on Monday. Pretty good's not the bar. The bar is get to the playoffs and win at least a game. Sark, just so you know, nearly 85% think that you can't just make the playoff, you have to win a game. But he started talking about guys that he could get into the portal, and you could kind of see him getting excited about what the juice and the bump that those 8 guys give the 2024 team. And at one point he said, I can sit around thinking about 2025, 2026, 2027, but I think we've got a chance in 2024 to be really good. And that's where these guys in the portal come from. I think Anwar, he's forever, maybe not forever, but at least forever now, caught in between the things that you're talking about. In-state versus out-of-state. Portal guys versus young guys on the team. There's never a perfect answer that's going to appease everybody when a lot of those things kind of conflict head on with each other.
Yeah, but you know what, Catch? Here's the biggest thing. I thought, and within that, what you're talking about, I think it goes back to something that you reported about, I want to say it was in late December, early January. And I thought at the time, you reported, and I was like, I don't know. I kind of shoulder shrugged it. But I think today kind of almost reflects on that. You remember when you reported that Steve Sarkisian really believes it's a team that could compete for a national title, right? Yeah. The word that he said today was that he is obsessed. And that's the specific word that he used. And I think what we saw from him in the portal showed how obsessed he is. He is very obsessed to the point that he thinks he can win it. Like he came so close that he thinks he can win it. And I believe you and I were joking, like, who the hell else he's gonna get somebody next? I mean, it's just probably a matter of time. Like, dude he is trying to get as many people as possible. I do believe there is an obsession though that is there. Like that's the thing when he just kind of wandered into that. And that key word to me is he said, he also said like he wants his team to exude that obsession as well. I think that all the portal stuff, everything, the whole like, hey, well, young guys versus, these other guys is like, I'm trying to win now. Like I appreciate all you young guys, the Jonte Cooks, DeAndre Morris. That's cool. You guys eventually get your turn. I'm trying to win right now, and I'm bringing in guys who I believe is going to right now because he is obsessed. You and him. I don't know who hits refresh on portal updates more. It would be interesting to look at your laptops at the end of the day, like how many times he refreshes like the who's in the portal versus how many times you refresh who sees in the portal. Like it's that to me was his admission that he's obsessed with it. I thought that's going to be the thing that I'll probably hold on to all off season.
The other thing, Anwar, kind of to go with that obsession, when he talks about not wanting to have the feeling in the building of we've arrived, I thought that was fascinating too. And it makes sense because he's been a part of the conference they're headed to, and he knows there's just a new version of this on the way. Back to the poll about what's the expectation. He knows there's a game in Atlanta that, with all due respect to everything the Big 12's ever done, it's bigger than the one in Jerry's house. Everybody can agree on that. It's bigger than that. And then there's at least one bigger one after that to get you to the Final Four if you're doing everything you want to do. And then you've still got to win another game in the Final Four. You may have to win this whole extra game that doesn't exist right now as an SEC team to get you where you want to go. And you can feel that he's just trying to keep everybody dialed up of where it needs to be, because fellas, we know this is realistic. The reason, Anwar, I ended up leaning more towards where you were than where Catch was in terms of, is it a win or is it or just get in the playoff? It's because of where we will all think of Texas in this next season. They're not just an kind of team going in to 24. There's going to be expectations, and Sark knows that.
I mean, look, you guys have followed Texas, Chad. You followed Texas for what, 20 plus years, and Catch, you've been doing this for what, 30 plus, whatever it is. You guys are old enough to remember that when guys got scholarships to Texas, that people thought they arrived. So there's been this fight for a long time just to make sure Texas players don't feel like they have arrived, like they don't feel like they've done this thing. And we know what happened after the 2018 season when they beat Georgia and they felt to themselves that they arrived. And all of last season was Steve Sarkisian kind of trying to make sure and hammer in, especially after the Alabama game. You know, you always hear him talking about that. Well, I want to make sure guys don't feel like they've arrived and still kind of keep pushing guys. And you know, there is that thing where, hell, he's brought in a bunch of new people, you know, to compete at a lot of different positions. He's got a bunch of new kids that are going to be on campus as well. So there won't be that feeling of they've arrived. And now I think he's smart to make sure when he says like, hey, they've almost got to reset their culture because this is this year's team. He did say something. Did you guys catch it when he said something about they'll see something in the stadium? He said something in the stadium about the 2023 season or something to that effect.
Yeah,
I was like, wait a second. We're not hanging a banner for that, are we?
No, I assume that meant it'll be in the Big 12 championships. Like they won a Big 12.
Okay.
It'll say, I'm assuming, and I heard that too, Anwar, because you know me, crap bag and helmets and all that stuff. And also being an Aggie, how to mark something, how not to mark something. But in the stadium, it'll probably just add on to Big 12 championships, 96, blah, 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 blah. And then it'll say 2023. And then I'm assuming only when, or if and when, if you however you want to look at it, if they won an SEC title at some point, then you go add letters that say SEC championships. But I'm assuming that's what he meant. Catch, is that how you heard that as well?
I don't remember that part, quite frankly. I might have been stewing. I was pissed for a lot of that, so it just might have been not even on my spectrum at that point. I do think, though, at some point on the stadium that you also will list playoff appearances, the way that teams in basketball list Sweet 16 appearances or Elite Eight, that it's so exclusive. Right. That I think that it'll also be a thing that maybe not Texas, although I think they probably will at some point. But I think most teams will start to list the 12 team appearances, and the teams that made it to the 4 teams will list those as well. The appearances, the times you've made the playoffs, because I think college football is about to be about making the playoff. Like it's about making the tournament in college basketball. And so being able to advertise and let people know just how much you're always in the tournament is going to end up being a thing, even if it's not quite that thing yet.
Do y'all think Texas fans are going to be okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make it
All depends on how it's displayed.
I mean,
right?
you guys tell me, what was the Texas fans' reaction to when, because TCU marked it, right? In their stadium, they marked the fact that they made the playoff even though they didn't win it all.
I mean, Texas had never even made the playoff. What the hell did their opinion matter on that subject?
Damn.
Well, I understand that, but I remember.
And TCU's baby JV football. They just are.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. If I'm a Texas fan and I think TCU's on a lower level than my team, and I made fun of them for doing it as a Texas fan, do I really want to see a banner or some kind of thing in the stadium that says playoffs 2023?
I know this. When Texas made the Elite Eight last year in basketball, I was like, they get to update the banner in the Moody Center. And like, that's a good thing. It can't be the only time you hang a banner.
Okay,
but when you win a national championship, it's a real lonely banner way. If you're the Lakers, you only hang when you win a championship, right? You're not like Western Conference final banners. But I think in college athletics, it's a little different.
Well, you just went Texas basketball versus Texas football. I would argue there's a difference.
I went Texas basketball Elite Eight.
Yeah, different.
You don't hang a banner for making the tournament. But if you make the Sweet 16, you make the Final Four, you make the Elite Eight, it does make a banner.
Right. Texas
you can go to Fog Allen and they do that for Kansas.
No, I agree. Texas basketball, to me, Anwar, is not one of those Final Four minimum kind of teams. That's what Kentucky does. That's what Kansas does. Yeah. My question is that what Texas football is? Are they a team?
I don't know.
We win conference. We'll tell you about conference titles. We'll tell you about national titles, and we will tell you when we retire numbers. Other than that, you're not going to see stuff on our stadium. Is that what Texas needs to be?
I'll be honest with you. It would sound kind of Aggie. I'll be honest with you. It would be a little bit Aggie-ish to say like to hang a banner for a participation trophy. Like because that's all that is we
the playoff.
You participated. You participated. You participated. You didn't win it. You just participated. I don't know. That's my kid gets. He get participation at the YMCA. I don't know. You should hand that thing out. Like I don't know. Dude, I think
making the playoff is that's okay.
And I think that's participation.
They are getting wrong. I'm just saying that's a hell of a thing to say.
And they didn't win. You didn't win. You didn't win the game. You didn't get to the title game. TCU got farther than Texas ultimately did. They didn't get a win.
They were national runner-up.
What's that?
They were national runner-up.
Right, exactly. Like my argument would be TCU gets to mark that however they want. They were in the damn championship game, and they're TCU football, and they haven't had anything of relevance to discuss since.
I am not listening to Texas fans who hadn't won a Big 12 championship in 14 seasons comment on how other people celebrate championships or playoff appearances or national championship game appearances. No offense to everybody in the Specs chat, but y'all can shut the hell on up about that.
It will be interesting to see how things are marked.
I mean, how do you commemorate? Like, I just get my only thing is if you lose the game, like, what's the purpose of hanging that to say?
Their problem is they didn't win the Big 12, so there's no other way to commemorate the best team in school.
Oh yeah, TCU.
That's true.
No, TCU had to do that. They'll never be back. This is the best it'll ever get for them. So you have to do that.
But for Texas, my recommendation, fellas, would be Texas needs to put up a Big 12 championship acknowledgement of 2023 and then move on. That's it.
But I'm saying that eventually you can't do it now, but in 10 years from now or 20 years from now, I do think schools are going to list how many times they make the tournament. It won't be as voluminous as people think. I mean, it's not like you're just going to have a string of 20 consecutive years. I mean, maybe if you're Georgia, you don't, but it's all relative, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. Some schools will. That school won't. I don't think so.
Okay.
They'll put it in the building.
I'm going to get Chris Del Conte on and ask him how snobbish.
Yeah.
Or is everything we're talking about, where does Texas fall on the what we recognize? Because it's like, they won't retire a number unless the guys want a national player of the year is the starting point, unless you're Roger Clemens and you
put that in the north end zone where they've got all the trophy stuff that's in there. Like you put a small something in there for like the 2023 season, and it's there where people can see certain things and then go from there. Because I do believe, if I'm correct, and I'd have to walk past it, and maybe I have time, maybe I have time to do it. I do believe they have something for the 2018 season beating Georgia that was hanging in there, and if I remember correctly, I think it may have even been it wasn't. I don't think it had a Herman picture, but they had something, and so I think you can. I remember because here's what I remember. I remember distinctly. Because it was like last year, and we were going to go into a practice in the stadium, and so that's where they usually have us hang out. I remember seeing it, and I remember thinking to myself, I can't believe they have this here. And I was going to take a picture, and I was like, don't do it. I say, because it's just going to light the world on fire, and just do not do it. So I might walk over there just for you guys, but I'm not going to tweet out. I have a golden rule when it comes to tweeting, which is if you think it's going to be funny and cute, delete it. That's my golden rule.
Mississippi rule online.
Yes. Whenever you think you're going to say something funny or witty, and you think you're laughing and you're about to hit send, delete it, because it's probably going to backfire on you. Yeah, and that's where I was with that tweet. I was like, Onward's rule, delete it.
Yeah, and by the way, here's an interesting. Somebody's bringing this up. Teams hang banners for the College World Series appearances. Blake, you're absolutely right. But the College World Series is 8 teams that came from a field of 64 that fought their way through series after series after series, regional action, super regional action, to then get there. That, to me, is more akin to a Final Four in basketball. You've worked your way all the way through.
I don't think making the College World Series is like making the Final Four. It's like making the Elite Eight.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm saying it is more akin to that, so that if you put banners up, I might understand it. I'm just saying, look, the next fan chatted, I'm not in favor of a CFP appearance being etched into DKR.
Yeah.
Ben would have said that shit a year ago when Texas never made the playoff. It would have been like that meme of Dave Chappelle with the crack. That would have been good. Can I get into the playoff? Yes.
Yeah.
Playoff into the pipe. Ready to smoke.
I know. Here's all I'm saying. Y'all, I don't have a position of power here in this discussion. My people put something on the building that didn't even exist. I'm just asking, do you think Aggies and Sooners would make fun of them if they did it? That's all. That's the litmus test I would use. Will the rivals make fun of you?
Well, the rivals make fun of. That's what rivalries are about.
Okay.
They made fun of Texas for losing in the playoff. Forget about whether or not they went that far in the season, but any little dig and reason that it's like, well, you haven't won anything, and it doesn't matter. We're laughing tonight,
right?
And if the Aggies hadn't gotten Terry Bussey today, Longhorn fans would have laughed.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
look for every reason possible to dog the other one for any reason, whether it makes sense or not.
Now, I do like this idea. This idea in the chat, best thing I've heard all day. CDC should get a bust made of Brett Yormark's expression when he handed over the trophy. Now, that I think Texas fans would be all about. Let's mark that in the stadium somehow. That'd be great.
We're okay with pettiness. We're just not okay with, I don't even know what the word is to that. What's the adjective to describe someone who celebrates? I don't know. Making the playoff.
I think, Catch, what you're realizing this week is that Texas fans are saying to themselves, like, we are big bad mama jammas, and anything less than like championships, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear like, hey, a banner for getting there. We don't want to be like, hey, a coach is successful if he just makes the playoffs. They just look at that playoffs like, yeah, I guess that's cool. Like it's like, I mean, it's like it's like it's Outback. And it's like, well, I mean, it's a cool steak. It tastes good, but I mean, it's not like we went to, you know, a Michelin restaurant or something to that effect. It's just out, you know, that's someone else's meal though.
No, hey, I was just about to say
that's wrong.
But I was just about to say, Chad, Texas is back. And nothing officially happened that made them back. But when the fan base is channeling their inner Alabama and Georgia and thumbing their nose up at anything less than winning the whole thing, Texas is back. Those are the Mac Brown years, baby. Those are the Mac Brown years. They're back.
Hey, look what this one said. Tessa says, we don't celebrate losing. We are Texas. Here's another thing to consider, guys, just in terms of where Texas is headed. Having a little bit of experience watching some SEC football for the last, well, my whole life. The SEC is a conference that the whole it just means more thing. It's for everything, including wins that you're not paying attention to that you didn't think were a big deal. They make T-shirts for everything in the SEC. Like certain.
Well, Chad, so if Texas wins the SEC, will the Aggies celebrate? If Texas wins a national title, will they say like, hey, we SEC win a national title. Look at us. It just means more.
It is
that line draw.
It is a question we have not had to face in the rival world yet, but I don't know.
They will root for Al-Qaeda before they root for Texas in a national championship game.
Like
Texas
I would assume
versus Al-Qaeda in the Sugar Bowl for all the marbles.
When they're in I mean, I don't know. I never thought of Anwar that I would see the thing that happened in 2006 where they tried to latch on to the Vince Young team and some Aggies tried to pretend they were rooting for the Vince Young team. I didn't expect that, but who knows? I mean, it's the first time some of those rivalries in the SEC, like, you know, Florida doesn't have Florida State in the conference and all that, but now that they're going to be in the same conference, my guess is no, but who knows? But my point was to the idea that some fan bases, like Ole Miss as an example, when Ole Miss beat Bama those couple times, they literally made shirts. I have one of them in this room with me right now that Ole Miss girl sent me because she was so excited they beat Bama. And they made like 2 or 3 of them. Every time they beat Bama, there'd be a new shirt that was made up. So just a warning to Texas fans. The SEC will make every little thing feel like maybe more than it is. Be careful what you put in the stadium. Just be careful.
Can I real quick, as we wrap this up, Anwar, last night, did you watch the end of the basketball game with Texas and Iowa State?
No.
At the end of the game, the seconds go off the clock. I don't even remember the player, but it was like the Iowa State guy, maybe with the ball, but he was center camera. He went right over to the Texas huddle and put the horns down. And I was like, he's trying to taunt Rodney Terry. He's trying to get a reaction from Rodney Terry. And Rodney just ignored him and went and shook hands and patted some guys on the back. And I thought, see, a few more times of that, and guys won't try to trigger Rodney Terry. That was a direct reaction to Rodney said it bothers him, so I'm definitely going to do it. I saw it last night, and last night Rodney didn't let emotions get the better of him. Progress.
You know what's so interesting too, Catch? When Sark started talking about the game last night, and you know, usually you talk about like another program and how they've won, and he started going down like, yeah, man, everything on Texas athletics, and man, and even that game last night, you know, and I think he realized like, oh snap, I don't know how to make this into a positive. And he's like, they closed out strong. And I was like,
no, they didn't. It was one guy. Dylan Dessou closed out like a mother last night, and the rest of them dudes sucked all night. That's what happened.
So that was probably one of the things that made me laugh. Hey, before we go to, okay, let me just ask you this, because I know you guys talked about wasted questions in the press conference, and the Arch Manning question.
Oh,
I mean, did you just at that point just say to yourself like, dude, are you, is this purposely looking for something for clickbait, or are you actually clueless? Like, what was your takeaway?
Man, I just think Arch is that part that might make ESPN.com's like
Let me
headline
see.
section, even though
Let me go to Twitter. Let me see.
I mean, it is clickbait, and I think you're going to have reporters. You know, I mean, we'll joke that we're going to do like 50 Arch videos in the off season because people will watch them. I think reporters are going to ask Arch questions. It was such a dumb question today, but hey, man. Can't let a couple of months go by, I guess, without some form of an Arch question. He may be high-fiving his editor like, hey, I know it wasn't popular. I know people rolled their eyes, but we had to have an Arch question. Good job.
You know what? I'm looking through my tweets from everything from from here, and that one about Arch and him having a bright future, Quince's #1 quarterback. That one has like 22,000 views compared to all the other things that have like 2,000 on it. Yep. So I mean, that guy accomplished his goal in an hour. There's 22.5. Now the ticker continues to tick. So I mean,
there'll be a headline on ESPN.com at some point that's like Sark: Quinn the starter in 2024. Arch will back up. Like that's not even news, but it's going to be a headline.
It's Captain Obvious, but yet it doesn't matter. So there is that. Yeah. So
all I thought of was Quinn Ewers. Make sure you got your thick skin ready to go. Keep it maintained. Just keep your head down and get ready to work. How he deals with all that mentally is going to be wild to see. Sark was half surprised at the end of it when they reiterated the question of, so Quinn is your starter, or is there a competition? And he's like, no, man, Quinn is our starter.
The quarterback literally just led the team to the college football playoffs. He talked about being one play away and how agonizing it was you'd be one play away from trying to getting to the national championship. And someone's like, I mean, so is he still your guy?
Yeah. Because hey, fellas, y'all talked about it. Fans have talked about it. Malik Murphy provided that boundary line. He provided that buffer between the two. Now it's not there. This would be like it, and obviously there was a national championship involved here. But if Chris Leak had to come back to Florida and be the quarterback with Tim Tebow still there and the magic that he created, little different because obviously Tebow was part of the actual packaging of that year. But you know what I'm saying? That didn't have to happen for Leak. What Ewers is about to go through, it's going to be wild, and hopefully he's ready. He's ready for it because that kind of senselessness is not stopping today.
Well, the thing I will say to that, Chad, and I think if you're Quinn, in a serious part of this conversation too. Not to say what you said wasn't serious, but I think you would agree that for Quinn's sake, he needs to stay healthy this year. As relates to that conversation, and he's had injuries since high school. Every year he's basically played since the junior year of high school. He has suffered some injuries, and every year at Texas he's missed a couple of games. So the one thing he does not want to do with that guy and that hype machine behind him, you don't need to miss 2 or 3 games with a shoulder injury. Like, you're going to be back in 3 weeks. Like, if you Quinn, if there ever was a year you got to stay upright, this is the year, because if that hype machine gets going in the SEC and it's 2 or 3 weeks in and Arch has done well, good luck.
Yeah, that's a great point. Catch. If you think Yankee fans loved Lou Gehrig, whoo-wee, get ready if that all goes down.
I think I hadn't thought about it, but it is so. In Ewers' last 3 full seasons of football, junior year in high school, redshirt freshman year of college, sophomore year of college. Now, he didn't really miss any games in that junior year in high school, but there are Quinn Ewers people who will tell you, oh, well, that game against Westlake in the state championship game, Ewers was all kinds of jacked up and his shoulder was messed up and he was hurt. So now they wouldn't have thought about it back then, but now it's like, God, you're right. Literally every single year, he's missed games or is so banged up it becomes part of the talking point for like why he didn't play well. He really does need a 12-game schedule this year where, and we talked about this with Sam too. It's the second consecutive long-term Texas quarterback who can they play 12 games? You almost bake it into your head. There's going to be a sprained shoulder or a collarbone, or for Sam, a concussion. You just never knew. It seems more shoulder kind of related so far with Quinn, but I think it's a really good point because at some point for Quinn's like draft stock, you don't want to be the guy that can't stay on the field because that's the thing more than anything else. NFL people value the most your availability. The best.
It's the reason why he had to come back.
Say what you want to about Caleb Williams, but like he played all the games and wasn't missing games. So NFL people won't think about him in the evaluation process. Are we only going to have him 8 of the 16 games or 17 games every year? And Quinn still has to prove that. I hadn't thought about it on war, but that's a really good point.
Thank you. Feel free to write about it, Chuck.
No. See?
No. I'm giving it. No. I don't have use for it. I'm actually wasn't being sarcastic. But it is but it is something like serious, like on the serious part of the conversation. Like the last couple of years, he's been hurt, and it's been something there. And then like you don't want to get hurt and have all the arch talk that's going behind you, and especially if he does well. Like then now all of a sudden, before Sark has never had to have second guess himself, that would actually be something that with everybody's like whatever CDC is calling you, the boosters are calling the money people, that becomes an interesting conversation.
Man, we just spent that long on Quinn and Arch.
That dude got us into that. See, he was brilliant. Crazy.
He was brilliant.
Crazy.
That guy, whoever that guy is, the mystery guy who asked the question, he knew what he was doing.
Crazy like a fox.
Yeah.
Onward, get better, my man. Get some rest.
Hey, when are you guys wrapping up?
As soon as we're done with buy or sell in like 5 minutes.
Call me. I have a really good story to tell you that I can't tell on air, but I have a hilarious story that came out of today that someone pulled me aside to tell me, and I want to share.
Oh, I can't wait now.
Nice.
All right.
So call me.
Better, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Anwar Richardson from Orange Bloods. There's a nice little teaser for Catch. He's really going to want the show to end sooner now. But
that leads me to believe that somebody on the media side, something happened.
Maybe.
We're going to gossip, I think.
Yeah.
We're off the air.
Nothing wrong with a little gossip. We'll get that. But before you get the good gossip, Catch, why don't you tell the folks about Mojo Insurance? We'll hit buy or sell after that. But everybody's always looking to save a little money. Tell them about Mojo.
Yeah, man, it's real simple. You want to give more money to Texas NIL, find out if you can save some money with your insurance, and then take that money that you save and then give it to NIL. Maybe that's the ticket. Maybe that's how Mojo Insurance take you. You want to give to NIL, save some money on your insurance, and then you can donate it all to a football player. Scan that QR code. Find out if you can save some cash. Look, they shop with over 50 A-rated carriers. You can see them all on the screen. If you're with Progressive, or you're with Travelers, but you don't know, maybe you could get the same deal with Farmers and it save you a few $100s or more, depending on how many things you've got to insure, right? Houses and boats and jewelry and all of those things. It all adds up. Find out if it can add up a little bit less with Mojo Insurance. Scan that QR code. Use the website address right there, mojoinsurance.agency. Fill out a quick form. It's as simple as that. I don't know why you wouldn't try Mojo Insurance.
It is House Divided on a Wednesday. Hope you're having a great one. Thanks to over 300 folks in the Specs chat. And Catch, it is buy or sell time. Cross that 1 o'clock mark. You want to go first or second today?
Real quick, I just wanted to address this one. Didn't Kirk Bowles cover Lou Gehrig? No, but he was a bat boy.
That is true. Yes, he was a bat boy, and he always told people he thought Lou was better.
And the natural, the Wonder Boy bat, that's based off of Kirk Bowles being a bat boy in the 20s.
Yep.
The Wonder Boy, that's Kirk.
They called it the Bowles Bolt.
I don't even know why I'm laughing at that. All right, we're going to play buy or sell. Chat, I will go first today.
All right.
Just so you know, I saw the word Brandon Harris in your section, and I cut myself off.
Okay.
You're like, I accidentally saw the first question, and I was like, ah! So the purity remains.
Okay.
But my first buy or sell question is Brandon Harris related as well. Buy or sell. Brandon Harris was the right choice as the new GM for Texas.
Sell. There probably had to be. I mean, to me, there probably had to be somebody else that would have fit perfectly for that job. Is he the right guy for Sark? Apparently. But was he the absolute best and right choice that they could have gotten? I have to sell that. They didn't have the position 3 days ago. So I can't assume that he's the perfect guy for a position they didn't even have. The
guy who was yesterday your director of recruiting is now
in a
position to be it's a fascinating. I honestly could do an entire hour on it.
He just took 2 steps into a job that you didn't have. There's not even a door that says GM in your office, yet you just created the position. It's got to be a sell. I hope it works for Sark. It may be the perfect guy, but it feels like a sell.
All right, buy or sell number 2, Terry Bussey, who signs with the Aggies. Oh, you know what? Duh. Put this bad boy. I have it in there to put on the screen, and then
I was wondering.
Here it is. I'm accidentally putting things up on the screen, and then when it's time to put things on the screen, I'm forgetting. Buy or sell. Terry Bussey is instantly one of the most popular Aggies on the roster.
Oh, absolutely buy. The name is catchy. It's memorable, but it's also a 5-star in a world and on a roster where 5 stars have been walking out the door. And frankly, not a lot of those big 5 stars signed. Some of those guys, flipped and decommitted and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's a big name. Aggies, I think, will go in with a little extra feeling about Mr. Bussey.
Buy or sell? Boy, you want to talk about careful here, Chad, but I expect honesty, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Buy or sell number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty Martins is no longer in the path of the light rail plans. So, Dirty's is safe. But you don't care because Dirty's is overrated.
Oh, my God. Okay. All right.
I told you, careful.
Here we go in 2024. Dirty Martins is no longer in the path of light rail. You don't care because Dirty's is overrated. Okay. I will. This is interesting. This is interesting. Okay. I'm going to sell because the part of it existing is important. The fact that it's not in the path of light rail, that is absolutely important. Now, at times, has Dirty's been a little overrated? Yes, I think would be that argument. The folks that live around Dirty's and that have eaten it all their lives would tell you there was an ownership change along the way and Dirty's went from one thing to another thing. But I am a firm believer that the great burgers in Austin can always be the great burgers in Austin again. So it needs to exist. So I'm selling the rail part. But yeah, there might be, some would tell you the overrated thing is real. So Dirty's, it's out there.
We need those 100-year-old greasy spoon burger joints.
You do. Dirty's, we love having you around. Just continue to, grease it up.
I just wanted your reaction to the question more than anything else.
It was well phrased. Well phrased. I remember my first trip to Dirty's, man. That was back in the good greasy days.
All right, buy or sell number 4. The Cowboys interviewed Rex Ryan for the DC position. What the hell? Let's go full big tent circus in 2024 and 2025, I guess.
Capital B, buy. B as in. I said this to somebody the other day, Catch, and I am serious. I'm amazed that I'm about to turn 50 at the end of this year, and Jerry Jones hasn't been the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm literally serious when I say it. I've been waiting for years for Jerry to do that, and this is just in that other weird pattern Jerry has. I don't want a great coach when he's great. I want a great coach when he's washed up, too old, and beaten down, and then I'll tell you how great he is. Of course they're going to talk to Rex Ryan. It's perfect. It's perfect cowboy circusy. Just get your peanuts, get your popcorn, stand back, because there's a family of 15 going up to the trapeze, and they've all got a star on their helmet. Woohoo!
You said peanuts, and at first I thought you said feet nuts, which doesn't make sense, except it kind of does. Look, Cowboys doesn't win anything.
That's for Rex Ryan, the feet nuts. You know he loves the feet.
He's the what?
What? Feet? Where?
I want it just for let's just have some fun. Let's have some fun. Rex would make it fun. Imagine him undermining McCarthy on a weekly basis. You've got the McCarthy dealing with the media, and then here comes Rex just saying whatever he wants.
Absolutely. With an 81-year-old man running it all, drinking Johnny Walker Blue, whatever. Just whatever.
I'm more entertained by that than them bringing back Mike Zimmer for like the 900th time. Okay. And finally, buy or sell number 5. After today, we should just let AI ask press conferences, the questions at press conferences in the future.
Buy, but not the whole thing. We should still let the humans ask questions. Catch, we should let AI ask the second question at every Sark press conference, and you and I get to determine what it is so we can set the proper tone. So we don't get one question of like, Brandon Harrison, what does it mean to you? And what about a GM? And then the second question is, Sark, the big wide world of college football is spread out before you, and your team just went to the playoff. Could you give us an idea of the scope and the thought process that you go through every day as you eat your breakfast and the dreams that you have? Like, what? Good.
Sark, you're pretty great. I named my hamster after you. I do oral. No, I'll stop. Never mind.
Let me tell you what should never be you should never have this question at a press conference. Hey, coach. Yeah. Jimmy Dugan, New York Times. You're great. Your thoughts. It should just never be a question. Ever. Talk about how awesome you are. No. Stop it. Okay. All right, Catch. Here we go. Buy or sell. And yes, we are starting with Brandon Harris. Buy or sell number 1. The Brandon Harris promotion and the other moves tells you that Sark's in charge and he's happy how things are running headed to the SEC.
Big buy. I mean, this is, I think, ultimately what's behind the moves that were made yesterday. It's an effort to not change anything. It is everybody that I care about, I just gave a promotion and a raise to. So maybe that will keep Lane Kiffin. Because every one of those people, I wondered when Billy Glasscock took the job at Ole Miss, okay, will he take a couple of, it's pretty standard protocol, right? Like you take your assistants with you and things like that. I wonder, will some assistants leave? And suddenly a Steve Sarkisian inner power structure, which was of a couple of people, and he's really comfortable. He likes the situation. He likes the people. He doesn't want change. Mm-hmm. And the only way to protect himself against that change, every single person got a promotion. Some of them got double promotions, and it will keep, in theory. And I thought one of the things he made a point to say, hey, seriously, almost every person on our staff everywhere got a job offer in the last month and a half. Mm-hmm. And he made a point to say, like, I'm serious. That's legitimate. So, I think for as long as he can, he wants this group that he thinks shouldn't be changed at all. Yeah. And this was his way of making sure that doesn't happen. I think that mattered more than these are the best people for these jobs that we can find.
You know what, Catch? You may have just absolutely cracked the code. Why do you create a GM position that wasn't there before? Because you see Lane Kiffin's bump and you offer the double bump. Lane could have offered any of them the bump, but only you could offer them the double bump. Set up the GM and then double bump multiple people.
I also I haven't looked it up. I think it's really interesting, though, that 2 of the people that got the bumps were women. Mm-hmm. And I wonder whether or not Searles is I got to look it up. Is she the highest ranking woman in college football right now? To be the director of recruiting.
Right.
Not recruiting operations. That's no offense to that job, but party planning is a big part of that. Event planning, junior days and camps. And director of recruiting means you're in charge of recruiting. And that's the lifeblood of a program.
Yeah.
At some point, that story is going to get so much has happened that it's in the backdrop right now. I was kind of surprised that question didn't get asked. I know it's 2024 and the idea of like women having jobs in sports is supposed to that's over with, right? It happens all the time. No, it doesn't. No woman that I'm aware of has ever been this high up the totem pole in the Texas Longhorn football hierarchy. Congratulations to Searles for being able to accomplish that. It's no small feat. And she's so young, it makes me wonder, is she a future general manager? What's next for her, where she's in her 20s, if I'm not mistaken, and already the director of recruiting at Texas. I mean, it's a story.
Yeah. Think about it, Catch. If I'm the badass 5-star and I'm considering Texas, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and A&M and USC, all the big dogs, how many of those schools, whatever the director of recruiting does, when I go on my official visit, how many times is that person a woman at those schools?
I don't know the answer to that question, honestly, but I don't think it's a lot.
Yeah. Has there been one at a school at that level? It is interesting to note there.
I'm going to look it up this week, but before the week is over, I'll at least go through the SEC and find out, is there a woman who's the director of recruiting at any other SEC school outside of Texas?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of one.
Yeah, I am not either. All right, Catch. Buy or sell number 2. Back to last night. UT showed you the worst first half of college hoops you've seen, maybe ever.
It's a boy. Look, you're saying maybe ever, and I'm going to say buy. There's a game, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say Texas played Fresno State in 96 when Tarkanian came to town.
Okay.
And I mostly remember that game because Reggie Freeman had a triple-double in the game. Mm-hmm. He had he ended up with 42 points. He had a great game, right? But if I'm not mistaken, they scored maybe 17 points. At halftime. It was a truly, and a little bit like last night's game too, where in the second half they come out and play so well that the margins kind of even out, and you wouldn't look at the final score and go, good God, they must have been horrible in the first half. It didn't quite end up like that, but they scored 29 points. They made no 3-point shots. They committed 9 turnovers. They were out-rebounded by 5 or 6. It just their starting backcourt didn't score a point in the first half. 3 players.
Oof.
3 players.
Wait, did you say 29? Didn't they score 19?
Or excuse me, 19 is what I meant to say, yes.
Okay. You're trying to be nice. You're trying to give them an extra 10.
You know me. I'm a big old homer, and I'm
really
always trying to give a little bit of extra when I can. It was 19 points. I was so startled by the thought that literally they started a 3-guard lineup, Chad, last night. And not one guard scored a point in the first half.
That's crazy.
It's hard to win. It's hard to win.
It was not the fact that they got it to even reasonable at the end. It took too much to get there and they couldn't win it. But man, there was a fight to it at the end. But boy, the beginning, they are having a tough time getting out of the blocks, even at home. Just ugly starts to these games.
They had the second game in a row where they've had an awful start. Although last night was even more awful than the previous start that they had in the game against TCU, which quite frankly, they came back and they won that game. It's no big deal. They had made a point in the 4 games before that because it had been an issue, I think, against Central Florida. Ever since Rodney Terry did the upside down hook 'em horns, hurts our heart, they've been really coming out of the gates flying. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is what happens, right? You reverse to the mean to some degree, but last night, they lost that game last night in the first 20 minutes of the game. And, you know, it reminds me, first time I ever saw it, you know, I remember the movie Sharky's Machine with Burt Reynolds. Remember that? At the end, the guy gets thrown out of the window and he plummets, and that's how the movie ends. It's kind of pre-Die Hard, before Die Hard. Okay. And one of the guys in the movies, it might have even been Bernie Casey, he gets shot. And he's laying up against the wall, and he's telling Burt Reynolds, go on without me because I can't move on. And it's like, oh, well, Bernie's going to die. But he just didn't die right away. Like sometimes it takes an hour to bleed out and die. Mm-hmm. That's what Texas did in the first half. Like they continued on in the second half and gave it a valiant effort. But the entire time they bled out from what happened in the first half, and then they ended up dying.
The Texas guards at halftime, go on without us. Go without us. We're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. All right.
The forwards were asking, how'd you get shot? You didn't do anything.
That is it. All right. We're powering through buy or sell. Remember, we're not halfway through the day yet. Football with friends at 2. Recruiting show coming up at 4. We got outsiders tonight at 9. But right now we got buy or sell number 3 catch. Terry Bussey signs with A&M. You think I should buy a jersey? Excited.
Sell.
Okay.
I don't quite know. He's a small town kid who I think is going to need a little bit of time to make an adjustment. The classification, I think he's going to make it, but I think he needs to fly a little under the radar. Let him get acclimated, and then let those things happen when he starts to do it on the field a little bit. I'd go with the Weigman right now. Like, I don't put it on the quarterback. That's what he came there for. I think Weigman would be okay with that. I might hold off on Bussey just yet. That's a lot for a guy. It's a big badge for a freshman to have to carry and wear.
Gotcha. And for the record, in college, he's going to be a receiver for the Aggies.
It looks like it, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, catch. Buy or sell number 4 to the birthdays. Chris Rock has a birthday today. For you, he's top 6 all time, but not Mount Rushmore of stand-ups.
Wait a minute. Why 6? Because it's not 4?
Well, no, I wanted to give him a little more respect than 10. I wanted to see if you'd put him in that group, a group of 6 stand-up comics,
okay,
or not.
Let me just think real quick.
Okay.
For me, on the Mount Rushmore, you got Richard.
Mm-hmm.
You got Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
You got Carlin.
Okay.
I mean, those are 3 for me are unbreakable. They're on like the last spot. Is it Chris Rock? I'm going to sell.
Okay.
I'm not even going to say that he's top 6 all time.
Fair enough. By the way, the level of respect you're giving Eddie Murphy there is so impressive. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. It's just that's impressive considering how much he was actually a stand-up that you, and you're not alone, would put him on a Mount Rushmore says a lot.
I don't go with longevity.
I know.
Right? Otherwise, Don Rickles might be on it.
Yeah, right. Don Rickles and red buttons.
What are the most important pieces of stand-up in my life?
Oh, yeah.
And see, the kids today don't know anything about this. But when I was a kid, having the Eddie Murphy stand-up routine on the cassette tape, not even like Delirious or Raw, but you know, they used to put the stand-ups with like the laugh tracks on it. You'd hear like the laugh tracks, and like I love that stuff. And having Eddie's, I don't even think kids today even do that. I wore that out listening to the Eddie Murphy stand-up routine. So yes, who my 4th is, I would need some real time to think about it because there's probably 100 people that could be on it at that point.
There you go. Happy birthday to Chris Rock today.
And Robin Williams would be up there.
Robin Williams. Okay. That's a big timer. Also, this guy's on the birthday list today. He's kind of a big timer. Garth Brooks has a birthday today, Catch. If I could take you back, you'd rather go see one of the big shows at Texas Stadium than a show from the first Vegas residency.
Oh, bye. I want to see those ugly ass cowboy shirts from the late 80s, early 90s, the ones that he wore on the album covers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what
all starched up.
Yeah.
It's like, is there a wrinkle in that entire shirt? Not even under the armpits. There's so much starch on that shirt. Yes, I want to see young Garth. I might even go see young Garth before all the hits have been written.
Oh, you want to go see him like at a rodeo in Oklahoma?
I mean, I would, sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously the thing is, he had a couple of monster albums. So the first big Texas Stadium show probably happened before all of the hits were written. That's all I'm saying.
That might be fair.
Plus, every time it make me think of the Kerry Von Erich winning the championship. It's weird that every time I would go into the old Texas Stadium, that would be in my mind almost as much as anything that the Cowboys ever did.
Now that's a wrestling fan right there. That's a wrestling fan. All right, that is how we do buy or sell. Before we get out of here, let me tell you the extra reason why I have a little extra smile on my face, why Catch has got a little extra smile on his face. Hell, we got to thank this guy because it was his idea. You know where we're going? Do you know where we're going at the end of the week? Yep. Hayes City Store. I'm going to leave Jeff on the screen too because he's so happy, and I got to thank him for creating the idea. He says, hey, we got to have an Orange Bloods get-together at Hayes City Store, and I thought, there's nothing about that sentence I don't like. I'm going to reach out to Travis, and we'll get it done. We're headed to Hayes City Store for a little get-together. You should be thinking of the same thing. When the weather's awesome this time of year and you get those perfect February days, it's a great time to go to Hayes City Store. I'm going after that chicken fried pork chop. There's a lot of great stuff on the menu. It's one of them that I have not had yet. I've done the tour of pork chops, 2 of the 3. I'm going to finish up with the chicken fried pork chop this week. I can't wait. The drinks are awesome. I'm already getting my plan together for what drinks I want to have. The appetizers are great. The main courses are awesome. And they've got some of the best desserts I've ever had. Once again, if you're into key lime pie, I've never had a better piece than is at Hayes City Store. There's your QR code. Go see them in Driftwood. They're at FM 150 in Driftwood, Hayes City Store. Getting hungry just thinking about it. All right, Mr. Ketchum, are we done? Is that it? We've gone really long for us in this new,
look, I've got more to say, but we've got the recruiting hour coming up at 4:00. A lot of signing day, Steve Sark. There's still more to that press conference that we haven't gotten into. So yeah, let's wrap it up for now. Alex Dunlap's going to have thoughts on Sarkisian and the events from today. I was just chuckling because I read one of Alex's responses to one of the things that Sark said at the press conference, and I'm sure he will talk about it in the press conference, but it'll definitely be something that we talk about at 4:00.
Very cool. Very cool. And by the way, Rex, I see you in the chat. Why does Chad insist on telling us how the SEC will be? We kind of have an idea there, dude. That's fair, Rex. That's fair. I'm an old man, Rex, and I overly caption way too much stuff. Way too much stuff. I'll admit that. So I didn't mean to be SEC splaining anything to you if that's what it felt like.
You know what? Hey, you admitted some, like you could do better. Yeah. Anwar admitted that his edge question, thanks, Alex, was, now I want to put words into Anwar's mouth, but kind of shitty, right? I mean,
he said it was a waste of time question. He did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet. I would like to apologize for.
Oh, God. Here we go. I think it's just going to end with him thinking he's great. I don't think he's got anything. By the way, Tracy, thank you for $2. Prince, best Super Bowl halftime of all time. Fire sell. I like that. I'll say bye right now, Tracy, without thinking of the others. Prince was badass.
I'll go by and I'll say that the Michael Jackson halftime show for Super Bowl 27 overrated. It wasn't that good. Mike was so good at live performances. He did not nail the Super Bowl halftime show performance. It's kind of disappointing because that is such a big day in Cowboys history. The fact that he was on the halftime show is notable, but nobody remembers a great moment from the halftime show. Prince, we know exactly the moment. We know exactly what it looks like. We know exactly how badass it was at the time. Is Prince going to get electrocuted? Like there were so many thoughts. So yes, Tracy, the answer is yes. And Chad, I apologize for interrupting you 7,000 times a day.
Oh, see, there you go. He found one. He found one or a few at some point.
7,000.
7,000. Tracy, thank you for that. Yes, I've worried about the artist getting electrocuted twice. Diana Ross in Central Park and Prince at the Super Bowl halftime. I thought both of them might die. And I was
it was pouring.
Because it was a torrential downpour, and I thought something was going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. By the way, since I don't believe we have done it during this show, let's give Specs a little love. Specs is ready to go. Get stocked up for the Super Bowl if you have not yet.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, we've got Football with Friends coming up at 2 o'clock. Get your notifications for that. Like, subscribe. We appreciate all the support. Recruiting show back at 4. The two of us back talking about National Signing Day 2, what did get asked and what didn't get asked at the Sark press conference. And tonight on The Outsiders at 9 o'clock, I'm rocking the maroon because the greatest punter in the world is going to join The Outsiders. Shane Lechler is on The Outsiders. The guest snake idea got us from Ty Harrington to Shane Lechler because they're related. Who knew? Ty told us and said, yeah, we'll see if he wants to come on. Shane Lechler tonight in the 9 o'clock hour. That'll be fun too. Thanks to everybody. What's that?
Can I give you a quick tease?
Sure.
Sark said at the press conference, complacency is the devil. Remember that?
Yes.
Well, if complacency is the devil, why did you just promote 4 people up the ladder and not bring anybody from the outside in? Because kind of feels complacency-ish. I don't know.
Interesting. We will get into that. Look at that. Look at that. The man's thinking. He'll give you more of that at 4 o'clock, Longhorn fans. That's what you're looking for, right? You don't want... You're wanting to just bask in your success. This guy over here, he's bringing up all those. We'll be back at the 4 o'clock hour for that. Mr. Cockamamie is coming up at 2 o'clock. It's going to be a positive afternoon. I can guarantee it. Orange Bloods live until high noon tomorrow. We are house divided.